Recording. All right. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our second call. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're not online right now, I hope you enjoyed this video when you do watch it. Again, my name is Najma. I'm the country desk officer for Comoros. I have had the privilege of talking with you all for a couple months now, and I'm excited that staging is now less than a month away. I know you all have been preparing for it, and I thank you so much for sending in your questions. So we actually do have staff from Comoros on the line right now, and they're going to talk to you about your program. And then after that, we're going to open it up to questions, and then we will just take it on from there. So Sarah and Haina, welcome.
Thank you. So we can start maybe by just briefly introducing ourselves. So my name is Sarah Singletary. I'm the Director of Management and Operations here at Peace Corps Comoros. So that means you work with me and the staff members I work most closely with for all of the money-related matters, living allowance and a lot of operational things that just help to keep the program running overall. So we're really excited to meet you. I myself was a volunteer in West Africa, so it's really great for me personally to be here in Comoros and to be learning about the culture here. Comorian people are so friendly, and this country is so beautiful. So we can't wait to welcome you here. I will let my colleague Haina introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I am Haina and I'm the Programming and Training Assistant. I'll be helping with the logistics around your 3 month free service training, and I'll be facilitating TEFL classes.
Excellent. So I have been in Comoros here only about 7 or 8 months, and before that I was working at Peace Corps headquarters, but Haina has been here since the beginning of the program, so she is definitely a pro with everything Peace Corps Comoros related. So we are, as we said, we're really excited to welcome your group this summer. As you know, you are only the 4th group of 2-year volunteers to come to Comoros in the current iteration, so it's still really fun and exciting for us to get to welcome a new group. We have a small but extremely smart and motivated staff here who are all working very busily right now to make sure that everything is ready in anticipation of your arrival in just a few short weeks. So we're making all the final arrangements for homestay families up at the training site to making sure the training center is ready to go and everything that goes along in between pencils and all of that. So as you all probably know, you will be arriving during the month of Ramadan. We thought that Ramadan might start today actually, but it looks like it will be tomorrow. This is, of course, a very special and holy time of year for Muslims who are fasting during the day, and it's a time where locally people are focusing on religion and doing a lot of religious reflection. So it's a really good learning opportunity, I think, especially for any trainees who will arrive who don't have as much exposure to Islam and are interested in learning about Islamic culture. It's also important for you all to be aware that there are a lot of more conservative restrictions in place during this time than may be the case throughout the year. So really, for that first week or so when you first arrive, in particular, you will want to make sure that your clothing is appropriate for Ramadan. So for women, this is long skirts and longer sleeves if possible. For men, pants, and for everyone, I think clean and neat attire is always important. Women may be asked to cover their heads in public as well. Let's see what else. If you all have more questions, of course, we're happy to talk more about any of this in more detail. Of course, everyone in your group is an English education volunteer. Everyone will be participating in the TEFL certificate program. This is a great opportunity for you all and for our post. This is the 2nd year that our post has been participating in the TEFL certificate program. All of the volunteers who are currently in country are English education volunteers, or are TEFL volunteers, in fact, but yours will be only the 2nd group that is participating in this special TEFL certificate program. Just a quick note that we were having some technical difficulties on our end with the Learning Space, the pre-departure portal, but we have rectified that. So thank you so much to everyone who has been submitting their assignments online. We now have that access and that capability to respond to the assignments. And I know you all still have a couple of assignments, I believe, that are still pending that should be finalized before your departure in early June. So please do continue to participate actively and to submit your lessons, and our staff will do their best to respond as soon as possible to provide feedback on your assignments so far. I think those are the main overview notes that we wanted to provide. Again, we look forward to hearing all of the questions that people have submitted, or if anyone else has been able to join the call. Heine, is there anything else, any sort of general comments you wanted to make before we turn it over to the questions?
No.
Hi.
I think you covered everything.
Okay.
Heine, could you briefly talk about like a typical day for a volunteer?
Oh, okay. So I think typically a volunteer would have 2 to 5 hours of teaching, of classroom teaching, so formal teaching, and they would start at 7:30, so they have to be up early and be at school by 7:30 and start classes. So classes would last 2 hours maximum. So 5 hours a day would be means you'd have like 3 classes, for example, at least 3 classes. And then for this group, the other exciting news is that I think all of you are going to live with host families, not just in compounds, but you're going to live with host families. So coming back to your host parents and like helping out with whatever's going on, and there's always something going on in Comoros. So it could be at your house, or it could be for your community. And for a lot of our volunteers, afternoons and nights would be spent doing English clubs or other types of clubs.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so we can open it up to some questions. I see Derek and Jill are both on the line here. So feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. And then if not, then I can proceed with the questions that I received in the inbox. So I'll give you a second or two.
So Naj, by the way, we are, our video is still allegedly thinking about turning itself on, which means that our screen has frozen in the meantime. So whenever you are ready, if you don't mind just reading the questions to us, because we can no longer see that chat box, unfortunately.
Oh, gotcha. Of course, I will do so.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Interesting internet connections here sometimes.
All right, well, I can start off with one question that I received. Okay, there is a question about bringing an iPhone. I actually want to get the person who sent this question. Jordan asked if bringing an iPhone, should they find a cheap dual SIM phone to also bring? So she was wondering if they should bring an iPhone or bring a cheap phone that has a dual SIM with her for service.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the answer is it depends. It's, of course, a personal decision, and I think either way would probably work. So maybe I can talk about the benefits of both of those options. If you bring a phone that you already have and you're comfortable with, you know, a phone like an iPhone whose camera you like or anything like that, you know, then of course the benefit is that you already know the capabilities of your own phone. You know, if there's apps and so on that you like, then you can load those in advance. Many volunteers do have an iPhone or an Android or some other device that they've brought from the US that they're already accustomed to using, and usually that will work pretty well here. In terms of it sounds like the question was an iPhone versus finding a cheap dual SIM phone.
Correct.
I think the benefits of the dual SIM, Heina, correct me if I'm wrong, it is not necessarily every volunteer who needs more than one SIM card. There are, as we mentioned in the welcome letter, two major cell phone providers here. Peace Corps will provide one SIM card for the family plan, and then some volunteers may need to use the second provider depending on their site. So unfortunately, you won't know in advance if you will need to use both, if your community will have reception for both, or if you will tend to use just one. So I guess, sorry, I know that's not a very definite answer, but I guess it is possible that you might want that dual SIM capability. I will say I think that it is pretty easy to find a cheap dual SIM phone here, or for that matter, if you, for example, wanted to bring the iPhone and that be your main phone, but then to buy a cheap, even single SIM phone here in the market, and then just carry both of those around. I think that many volunteers actually do carry multiple phones, just small, maybe one is a small, cheap thing, just in case they need that second SIM card. So I think it partly depends on how much you want to be weighted down, and if you prefer to, to have the perhaps higher functionality of a phone like an iPhone versus just a cheaper one, but which has that dual SIM capability. I think that we have volunteers in country who are doing any combination of the above.
Yes, yeah, I think a lot of volunteers do have dual SIM phones, but they also buy what you call the candy bar phones.
Oh yeah, those like tiny brick phones that are just like very simple.
Like a flip phone.
Or not even like
Not
those
even.
tiny, like I think they're sometimes like Nokia or some other cheaper brand.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have data capability, right?
Yes.
It's just like pretty basic, but just to be used as like a repository for your second SIM card if your primary phone doesn't.
Because they have also the benefit of lasting you like 3 days, because you don't do anything with them other than call and text.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a longer battery life, which a lot of volunteers will need depending on their sites, because they won't necessarily have, regular access to electricity.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah and Heina. Okay, so our second question is coming from Jordan as well. It's about co-teaching. So will we have co-teachers once at site?
So that depends on the site. And it also depends on the island. I think some islands have a culture of co-teaching that is stronger than other islands, but some sites specifically, and some host institutions, I might say, specifically asked for co-teaching to be a thing, but some others were also very, very explicit in that they did not want co-teachers, but they wanted teachers. But in both cases, there are there are community of practices and also regular meetings, so weekly meetings with all the other English teachers, where they're supposed to be sharing with the other teachers, to be facilitating or whatever. So whatever form of community of practice it takes is good, so long as they share with their colleagues. So they won't necessarily be co-teaching, but they would have to work with their colleagues.
Okay. Great, thank you. We have another question about TEFL. So what do our assignments grades go towards from our TEFL course? So I imagine they're asking about the grades that they receive from the modules that they're completing, and that they will complete when they get in country. So where do the grades go towards? And I believe, yeah.
Yes, that's a very good question, and we apologize again, because of the technical issues we've been experiencing. They haven't received their grades yet, but they go through Learning Space. There is a special page that is only managed and controlled by Post. It's the master record, and that's where all their grades go. But I will start sharing those grades with them. I've actually started grading. I think Module 2 is all graded now, so I'll send that back. And yes, so they will get their grades.
Great. And also they receive a certificate at the end of the course, correct, Heina?
Yes, at the end, yes, they will receive a certificate by Peace Corps, but also the Center of Applied Linguistics,
Okay.
which is a very renowned institution.
Great. Thank you. All right. Looks like we have a question from Jill. She's asking, what does it look like, the distribution of volunteers going, what is the, oh, sorry. What is it looking like, the distribution? Oh, so what is the distribution of volunteers across the 3 islands? Hello? Can you hear me? Jill, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, okay. I think we may have lost Heina and Sarah. Just give me, oh, maybe they're back. Sarah?
Did we go out for a minute?
Yes, you did.
Heina was giving a beautiful explanation of something.
Oh no, we didn't hear anything.
Where did you lose us? Heina was talking about the what's it called, the assessment quiz at the beginning of the Learning Space module. Did you guys catch any of that?
No, we did not.
No.
Sorry. Okay. Do you mind repeating?
So this is just a very important message to all invitees, is that the first module has a self-assessment quiz, and that it would be really helpful to ask if they could do that quiz. It's not graded in that if you take the quiz you're good, but it allows us both to have an overview of what the needs are and helps us map out the TEFL training throughout PST. So I haven't received any answers on that. So it'd be really awesome if you guys could do that. It takes around 20 to 30 minutes to complete it.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Heina. I'll be sure to send them an email kind of outlining that particular survey for them to complete.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Jill did have a question. I think we lost you briefly. She was asking about what does the distribution look like for the volunteers across the 3 islands?
What is the distribution?
Of volunteers.
So nothing is final right now, but I think so far what we have in mind is maybe an equal number between Grand Comore and Anjouan, and Moheli usually gets fewer volunteers. But I don't think at this stage, because what we do is we develop a lot of sites, and then as we meet the trainees and all that, there are a lot of factors that contribute in finalizing numbers and all that. But there's usually maybe around 10 on Anjouan, around 10 on Grand Comore, and then maybe a couple in Moheli.
And Moheli is smaller and less populated than the other 2 islands, which is the reason that there are fewer volunteers there. So no one will be by themselves on an island, but it is true that we have fewer volunteers currently on Moheli, whereas, as Heina said, volunteers are more or less split evenly between Grand Comore and Anjouan.
Great, thank you. So we have a question about PST. So they're asking, what other type of teaching training topics will we cover during PST?
Mm-hmm. So other kind of teaching. So there are the default classes, but there will also be Comoros specific content. So anything from how to grade in Comoros and what does the national curriculum look like? How do you adapt everything to that? And then there are maybe specific what are called global cores. So things that all volunteers in all posts learn. So gender, for example, women empowerment and all that. There are, I think as far as TEFL goes, there are also cross-cultural classes about behaviors in class and teacher behaviors and students' behaviors and all that. Yes, that's everything I can think of as far as DEFOL goes. But there are also a lot of other things that are covered throughout PST.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. And you all may have seen some of this in your pre-departure materials, but as Heina mentioned, you will have a lot of technical courses, both TEFL certificate specific, or sorry, I should say TEFL technical skills specifically, as well as some of the general cultural and educational information that Heina mentioned. But in addition, every volunteer goes through different sessions on safety and security, medical sessions that will help you understand how to take care of yourself and common ailments in Comoros. There are some general administrative sessions, both from in terms of how to get your bank account set up and what your living allowance looks like, as well as policies and procedures that you're expected to follow during your time in Peace Corps. There's a lot of language sessions, of course, that takes up a major part of your time during PST, as well as other cross-cultural sessions that help you understand the Comorian culture that you'll be integrated in. So for example, I believe early on, because you're arriving during Ramadan, you might have a cross-cultural session that tells you more about what Ramadan means in Comoros and what to expect. Hopefully links that with some common phrases that you might need in local language that correspond to that topic, and so on. So PST is really jam-packed with a lot of information, but I encourage you to look on it as a really special learning opportunity, and opportunity to really learn a lot about Comoros and about this life that you're going to live for the next 2 years. I will say that I'm kind of jealous of you guys right now, because I've been working so hard over the past 7 or 8 months to increase my Shikamori language skills. They are not very good. I think you guys will exceed my skills within your first couple of weeks, because you have that opportunity to spend a few hours every day just focusing on learning the language and learning the culture. And I think that's a really cool opportunity. There's not a lot of jobs where you get that luxury of so much training and so much time to really reflect on the experience you're about to have before you really start it in full force at your communities. So we know it can be a little tiring to go through so many weeks of training, but it's also a really unique time in your Peace Corps experience.
And you're also going to get to go to your sites and visit your sites during PST. So that part, I know trainees love going to their sites. There is a week where you're going to teach, so a model school week where you go and practice teaching under supervision. So there are we try to keep it fun, and there are outings. There are a lot of things to look forward to. Not just learning, not just sitting in a class.
Great. Thank you so much, Heina and Sarah. All right, we do have another question about the TOEFL course. So how much English will the students already know, and does that depend on which site I am placed at? And this is a question coming from Caitlin.
Yes, I think a lot of the TOEFL questions actually were posted on the learning space, and I answered them maybe yesterday. So
okay.
I think so. Volunteers are assigned to college middle schools, so middle schools and high schools, and the fact that it doesn't really impact the student's level, that is, doesn't really impact who gets sent where. It's really the site itself, the work that's there, it's just it's a lot. I think it's a lot of things that influence that decision. But the English level wouldn't be, I wouldn't be able to tell you this is how they're doing, because volunteers might end up teaching sixth graders, and English is only introduced in sixth grade. So there will be a huge difference between a volunteer who is teaching a sixth grader, because they would start the ABCs basically, and another one who would be teaching in high school and be teaching a 12th grade, because then you're just learning text and getting ready for the national exam, which is mostly an oral exam. So it's really, I think it can be anywhere from low beginner to intermediate high. I would not say advanced, So they shouldn't be expecting their students to know or be fluent in English, because it's not, so English is not taught as a second language here. It's a foreign language, which makes it very, not really accessible, if that makes sense. And even less for people who live in rural areas, which is where they're all going to serve.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to pause for a little bit. Do we have any questions from Derek or Jill? I didn't want to continue on and skip over you all.
Oh, no, I'm just enjoying listening.
Oh, great. All right. It looks like Derek just submitted a question. So Derek is saying that he tries to go for runs or work out somehow every day. How strange might this be in the community, and how achievable will this be when I'm in Comoros?
Okay. So I think I don't even know how to respond to this, because for me it feels like being very honest and saying even if you walk, it's going to be strange because you're a foreigner. So whatever you do, people are going to stare. Even if you're just walking and going to school, people are going to stare the first couple of months. And then they'll get used to you because you'll be a member of the community, and they won't stare. They will, they will greet you a lot. But I think overall, I would say no matter how rural the community is here, going for runs for male volunteers, I'll be very specific about that, is not won't be perceived as being weird or anything, but the first couple of months, of course, it will be. People will be asking you, why are you running? Where are you running to? Who are you running from? Why do you need to run? So you should be expecting to have answers to those questions, and we'll give you tips as to what to say. Don't worry. But yes, females can also run, but it really depends on the community, and it really depends on how long you've been there and how maybe the culture in your community. So that's there's just a lot that goes into it.
I think to add a little more to that, I think that it definitely is possible to lead an active, healthy lifestyle as a volunteer. And, I think we have a lot of volunteers who find other ways to be active and to exercise in their communities. For example, playing soccer with people in the community, or even starting a soccer club or something similar, basketball, whatever you have access to or prefer to do. With students at the schools that you're working at. I know a volunteer in a different country, actually, who started a dance class with some young students she worked with, So even if, as Heine said, community members might see that as, unusual at the start, I think it's definitely possible, as long as you are careful about what you're wearing, appropriate exercise clothing and so on. You can certainly find those avenues for exercise. This will also depend quite a lot on the community, but I think so that some volunteers might have, for example, longer walks to work, or maybe the market is a little farther from your house, so you might find, depending on your current lifestyle, you might find that in Comoros you just in general are walking and moving around a lot more than perhaps you were in the US. And so that's another way just to stay active on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I'll just add as well that as a female volunteer, it was difficult to go running in my community. And so like Sarah suggested that some volunteers, I had actually a video like T25 or some of the workout videos that I had already downloaded onto my computer. And so I was able to work out in my room and just be comfortable, just, kind of getting my exercise in for the day. So you'll definitely learn how to be creative and at least do the things that kind of work for you. And throughout your service. Alrighty. So we do have another question here. It's actually another phone question. Caitlin's asking, she has a phone from Verizon, and she's asking whether she needs to unlock it, and then can she buy data while she's in country?
Yes. So to the first question, yes, yes, yes. If you have any phone, regardless of the provider, please do your best to make sure it is unlocked before you come to Comoros. It will be very difficult, if not impossible, to try to do that from Comoros. So that's definitely a major takeaway for everyone. I think just make sure that your phone is unlocked so that you can use it easily here. Regarding data, yes, it is pretty easy and I would say relatively affordable to purchase data. So data and phone credit work on a pay-as-you-go system. So you buy like, a little scratch card, or there's another transfer method where, you buy a certain quantity, a certain amount of, or a certain, amount of money's worth of either voice data, or you can transfer that into data. Sorry, I feel like these are not the right tech terms to use, but I think you get my gist. Yeah, so you can easily purchase that and then just reload that directly onto your SIM card.
Great. Caitlin's also asking, should she buy separate insurance for her phone and laptop that she's bringing?
So that, of course, is a personal decision, but it definitely is worth considering investing in personal property insurance for any valuable items that you have, especially electronics, just in case something gets lost or stolen during your time here. Peace Corps has not, for a personal item, Peace Corps can't do a whole lot to help out with that, unfortunately, so it might be something that's worth considering just in case something happens to your device. You would of course want to make sure to look at the policy. I'm not sure what is standard in terms of just damages over time. Do be aware that it's a hot and humid climate, and so that can certainly, gradually wear down your devices over time. So you might want to think about bringing a dry bag or something where you can put your devices to try to protect them from the elements. But yeah, personal property insurance might also be a good avenue just to protect in the case of theft or other problems.
Great, thank you. So we have another question about dress. So Caitlin's asking, how do women deal with being so modest? Is it hard to find things to always cover your bottom half of your body and your shoulders? Do the men catcall women, or how are women respected in Comoros? So it's kind of, there's a lot of questions in that. So the first one really is, how do women deal with being so modest in Comoros?
Well, yeah. So I think that question maybe is partly answered by the subsequent questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that certainly the answer that I, as an American female, would give would be different from the answer that Haina would give as a Comorian female.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's something from my personal perspective that, especially once you are immersed in the culture, you understand the cultural reasons why people dress or act in a certain way. And of course, we expect that all trainees are, approaching their Peace Corps service with the desire and the intent to be respectful of people around them. I think it's something that you just kind of get used to. I'm not someone who tends to wear long dresses in the U.S., but for me, it doesn't feel like an imposition to adapt to that here in Comoros, because I know that I would stand out, and probably in a negative way, if I tried to deviate too much from what is culturally expected. I think that every volunteer has to navigate this for themselves and to figure out what boundaries they feel comfortable with, but to figure out how to balance both being respectful of the local culture, but also making sure that you feel like you're maintaining your independence and your own culture that you bring to this experience. So I can give an example from my service. I also served in a predominantly Muslim country, and so some of the men in my community would not shake my hand. And so when I first arrived, that probably was kind of startling to me and took a while to get used to. But then once I was in the community for a while and developed, friendships and relationships with these same people, I understood that, this man was not trying to cause me any disrespect by not shaking my hand. In fact, it was the opposite, that because he, from his cultural perspective, it was a sign of respect to keep that separation, but that he showed his friendship and, our interaction in a different way. I still felt like I was supported by people in the community, even if I displayed that in perhaps slightly different ways in terms of gender roles that I was used to.
Thank you. Heina, did you want to say anything or add to what Sarah just mentioned?
No, I think maybe what I want to add is that we have cross-cultural sessions during PST that address those, and that I think for volunteers, like, it's really personal, and like we encourage them to exactly what Sarah said, to not completely lose their identity and all that just because they're in Comoros, but to find that line. And I think they have a couple of sessions where the language and cross-cultural coordinator actually addresses like topics like catcalling and how do you respond to that, dresses and what are the dress codes for different events and different occasions and all that. So they'll have an opportunity to talk to the language facilitators and the culture facilitators, but also to a couple of currently serving volunteers.
Thank you. And so to her second part of her question, she was asking, is it hard to find things to cover her shoulders and her the bottom part of her body, like the legs?
Oh, it's not hard at all. Actually, it's actually very easy because everyone has. So we have shawls or veils or different things that we use. Lesos, what we commonly use here are called lesos, and they only cost $1. So right, no?
Yeah.
So everyone uses them, and you can use them even if. So let's say you're wearing like cup sleeves, or like you can just put them around your shoulders, and they're very cheap and very accessible. And when they come, there's also a day, maybe the second day of their arrival, where we have vendors come to the training center, and they can buy what we call boo-boos, which are like shaped like a tube. I don't even know how to explain them, but they're also very cheap.
Yeah, just like long dresses that are loose and kind of flowy that are pretty common here.
Yes, and they're also very cheap. So,
and it seems like there's also in many communities like a tailor or someone who could make clothes. You could, so if someone's very tall or very short or something they can't find things that fit as easily in the market, then there's also the opportunity to have clothing made to order, or if you have a particular design or something, so that happens as well.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Well, maybe what I would add though is that if it's someone who really feels more comfortable in pants, because I know not everyone likes to wear skirts. So if you really like pants, my advice would be like, as a female, yes, sorry, thank you. As a female volunteers, my advice would be like get as many tunics as you can, cotton, because they're not easily accessible here. So like just get long shirts or tunics that you can wear over your pants.
And ideally, like when you say tunic, that would be like ideally going down about to your knees.
Yes.
So not just, like in the U.S., it's of course easy to just have like a shirt that goes a little past your waistline. Like we actually mean longer actual tunics that go, again, pretty close to your knees would be ideal. And then usually wear pants underneath that.
Great. Thank you. So we have a question about malaria medication. So Caitlin's asking, when do we start our malaria medication, and how are we getting the prescription?
So you will start that medication on the first day. The Peace Corps medical officer will meet you on the first day after your arrival and get you started on something. I guess I'm not sure of the timing, if this is on the first day, or it's certainly within the first few days, in terms of determining which malaria medication makes the most sense for you based on your personal health history. But you will, again, sometime in the first 2 or 3 days, have that opportunity to sit down one-on-one with the medical officer, the PCMO, to go over in a little bit more detail the kind of the pluses and minuses of each medication, any potential side effects versus, as you might know, some are daily but others are weekly, and just kind of figure out with the PCMO what makes the most sense for you. So it's not something that you need to worry about prior to departure. You can you are certainly welcome to research the medications in advance if you want to. Najma, you might know better than I do if there's currently any resources that Peace Corps provides in advance. But
Yeah.
Either way, just know that you will have that opportunity to have a conversation with the PCMO very early on after arrival, and we will get you taken care of as soon as possible, basically, once you arrive.
Yeah, I had sent them an anti-malaria prophylaxis one-pager that kind of walks them through each of the type of malaria medications that are provided. And so, if you all take the time to read through that, you'll be well informed, so that once you get in country and you do sit down with your PCMO, you can have a informed conversation about which medication to take. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me, and will forward it to your nurse, who will probably be able to give you some more information about that. Okay. And just as a reminder about medication, please, I know you were already told this, but please remember to bring at least 3 months worth of medication that you may be on. I know your nurse had already may have communicated this with you, but so if there's any particular medication that you're actually on, be sure that you have at least 3 months worth of that when you enter country. Thank you. So we do have a question about bringing cash. So Caitlin's asking, do I need to bring cash? Do I need to get different cash from my bank? And how do we get money each month from Peace Corps? Is it direct deposited, or is it actual physical cash that I receive?
Great question. So in terms of bringing cash, I would suggest that, just as for your own personal comfort as a savvy traveler, you might want to bring a couple $100 in cash, but I don't expect that you would necessarily need that after arriving to Comoro. But you might just feel more comfortable having some cash on you when you arrive in case you need it. Then once you arrive in country, so during PST, you will receive in cash what we call a walk-around allowance, which is just a small amount of money to help cover your incidental expenses during PST. So that might be phone credit, or if you need a bar of soap, or an extra snack or anything like that. Most of your meals during PST will be taken with your host family, so your major daily expenses will already be taken care of, but you will, as I said, receive a small amount of cash during PST to cover other things that might pop up. And then once you swear in and become a full-time volunteer, you will receive your monthly living allowance every month. So this is automated. It is a direct deposit, but it will go to a local Comorian bank account that we will help you to set up during PST. And then you will, again, during PST, get all of the information about how to access that account. Probably, I think most volunteers go to the bank once or twice a month, depending on their needs, to pull money out in cash. And then this is a largely cash-based economy, so you will primarily be operating in cash, but you will have received your local living allowance to the local bank account. Did I answer all parts of that question?
Yes, you did. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Can you also remind us about bringing personal passports?
Yes, please do. Bring your personal passport. If you have a current valid personal passport, we do highly encourage you to bring it. as you know, you will have a Peace Corps issued passport that is meant for all of your travel during your time in Peace Corps service. This is the one that will have your Comoros visa. Even if you leave on vacation to another country during your time in service, you will still use the Peace Corps passport because, again, it's the one that has your visa and you are a Peace Corps volunteer even when you're on vacation. But that being said, because we do not have an embassy here in Comoros, it can be a little challenging and time-consuming to replace a passport. So I do recommend that you bring your personal passports along as a backup, just in case something were to happen to your Peace Corps passport. We would work with you to get it replaced, but as I said, there could be a bit of a delay, and so just for your, I think just to have a backup is a good precaution if you already have a personal passport that you can bring with you.
And I know some of you may have submitted your personal passport with your Peace Corps passport application. You will receive your personal passport when you arrive at staging. So I will be giving that back to you once we meet in Washington, D.C. And if you don't have a personal passport, you do not need to run out and try and get one at this time. If we do run into an issue, while you're in country and you do lose your Peace Corps passport, there are ways. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, to still get to get a Peace Corps passport, even if you don't have your personal passport. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Jill is asking. My personal passport will expire during service. Can I use my Peace Corps passport after I COS, as I will travel before going home? And will I be limited to what countries I can visit with my Peace Corps passport after I COS?
So you are allowed to continue to use your Peace Corps passport for up to 90 days after your COS date. For example, if you are, planning some sort of interesting travels afterwards. If you expect that you might want to be traveling for a longer period of time than that, then I would encourage you to start the process, whether that's now or at some point in the future, to renew your personal passport. Do keep in mind that if your service were to end unexpectedly at any point, which of course we hope will not happen, but for example, if you had to return home for medical reasons, then you would not be able to use your Peace Corps passport past that point. It's only for volunteers who are closing their service, who are COSing at the end of the 2-year service, to have that 90-day window in which they can use the Peace Corps passport for personal travel. And I am not aware of any country restrictions with the Peace Corps passport. It operates very similar to a personal passport. It's, it will look the same as a personal passport. So there's nothing that is inherently specific to the Peace Corps passport in terms of travel restrictions.
Yeah. And yeah, if you're doing it after your COS, there are no restrictions. But if you are traveling during your service, then there are some countries that are restricted, and you would find that information when you actually submit your form to apply for vacation or for leave.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And I was thinking in terms of the passport itself, like the passport is not like forbidden to travel to other countries, but that's true, as Mohammed said, that there are some countries that are considered off limits to volunteers during your time in service. Anytime that you'll be traveling internationally on vacation during your service, there's an approval process here at Post that you'll learn more about later in terms of making sure that your itinerary doesn't include any of those countries that are restricted by Peace Corps for security reasons.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jill is asking, in that case, can I renew my passport from Comoros because my Peace Corps passport has because we have your passport. Sarah, you want to take that? So she's basically asking, can she renew her passport from Comoros? And yeah, go ahead.
I don't know the answer to that, actually. Because we don't have a U.S.
Embassy.
embassy here, it could be challenging. I can try to find out and let you guys know if you are interested. It might be a little challenging, but I'm really not sure exactly what that would look like, but we might be able to work something out with the embassy in Madagascar if one of the consular staff members traveled here at some point. So it would not necessarily be a smooth and easy process, but it's possible that there's a way to make that happen.
So yeah, and then let me just add, Jill, what I could do is if you send me an email, I can get your personal passport mailed to you, and then between now and when you depart, you can try and see if you can get it renewed, or at least have the application, like leave it with, a family friend, or some family that could then submit the application for you perhaps. But we can talk about this offline, but I think there may be a way for you to do it before you leave, and then it be submitted while you're in country, and then they can mail me the new passport, and then we can get it sent over to Comoros. We can be creative and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I'm assuming I probably won't travel more than 90 days, but I was just wondering. So Thank you.
No problem. Great. Okay, it looks like we only have 5 more minutes left. And we have actually covered all of the questions that I've received. Derek and Jill, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. This was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything right now, but it's been very informative.
Great. I do want to mention that, staging will be on June 4th in Washington, D.C. Just as a reminder, you've already received instructions on how to call SATO and book your flight or train to the staging event. So please, if you haven't done so, please definitely call them and book your transportation. If you're going to be traveling on your own, say, driving to the staging event, just send me a quick email and let me know. That way I don't need to track your travel itinerary coming to the staging event. And then check-in again is from 12 to 2, and you will be able to check into your hotel if you do arrive around 10 o'clock. It's not guaranteed. It really depends if the hotel has the rooms available, but often not, you are able to check in before you have to register for staging. Okay. Sarah and Haina, do you have any closing items that you would like to mention before we end the call?
Just to let you all know that we are really, really, really excited to meet you in just a few weeks. The countdown is on. Congratulations, you're almost here.
Almost.
Thanks to the two of you so much for waking up early to chat with us, and greetings to everyone who might watch this recording later. We are, as I said, we're just really, really excited to welcome you guys in just a few short weeks. I encourage you all to do your best not to stress out over the next few weeks, not to worry too much about your packing list, but just make sure that you are spending time with your family and friends and eating tacos and nachos and Cheetos and other things that you might not get as easily here. All right, so we look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And again, if you feel free to send me emails at comoros@peacecorps.gov if you have any further questions. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Haina.
Take care.
Bye.